You've been there, right? You've spent hours with a textbook, your favorite highlighter in hand, rereading your notes until your eyes just glaze over, only to forget pretty much all of it the next day. Yeah, we've all done it. But what if I told you that most of what we think are good study habits are actually some of the least effective ways to learn? Okay, let's get into this, because today we're going to uncover the science of how our brains actually forge lasting knowledge. This really is the central question, isn't it? It's so easy to mistake activity for achievement. You spend all that time highlighting and rereading, and you feel productive. You feel like you're getting somewhere. But is that feeling the same as actually learning? Well, science suggests the answer is a big fat no, and we're about to find out why. So how do we even begin to learn smarter? Well, it all starts with a concept that sounds kind of complicated, but is actually super intuitive. It's this thing called metacognition. Metacognition is pretty much your own internal learning coach. It's that little voice in your head that makes you stop and ask, wait a minute, am I just letting my eyes scan these words, or do I actually understand this? Getting in tune with that self-awareness is the first and honestly the most important step. It's what flips the switch from just passively reading to actually learning with intention. All right, let's tackle a big one, a real sacred cow. We've all been told a million times that active learning is the gold standard. We picture all these hands-on experiments, dynamic group projects, and yeah, that sounds awesome, but there's a huge misconception hiding in plain sight. I mean, think back to biology class, dissecting a frog. It's the absolute poster child for active learning, right? You're physically doing something, you're following the steps, you're using the tools. Surely, this has to be one of the best ways to learn. And it seems like the answer should be an obvious yes. But the research tells us to pump the brakes and think a little deeper. Is the physical activity itself what's causing the learning, or is there something else going on? And this right here gets to the absolute heart of the matter. Researchers call it the engagement fallacy. It's what happens when we confuse being hands-on with being minds-on. You can be totally busy dissecting that frog, but you might just be thinking about the next step in the instruction manual, not about how its circulatory system actually works. The key takeaway is simple. Just because your hands are busy doesn't mean your brain is doing the heavy lifting of learning. This whole busy versus learning idea, it explains so much about our most common study habits. Our brains are wired to love shortcuts, especially the ones that feel productive. But that feeling of ease, it's often a trap. Just look at this slide. It shows the great divide in studying. Over on the left, you've got the familiar, cozy habits, rereading, highlighting. They don't require much mental effort, which is exactly why we love them. But on the right, that's where the real power is. Things like self-testing and interleaving. Now, they feel harder for sure, but that struggle, that's a feature, not a bug. That's what actually builds strong, lasting memories. And this quote just nails it. And hey, it's not our fault. It's just human nature. We automatically drift toward what feels easy and comfortable. And that's precisely why we have to be conscious about choosing these more effective and, harder strategies to make any real progress. Okay, so if the easy way doesn't work, what does? The answer is all about embracing what cognitive scientists call desirable difficulties. These are learning strategies that feel challenging and maybe even a little frustrating in the moment, but they lead to knowledge that is so much stronger and more durable. First up is the single most powerful strategy there is, the testing effect, also known as retrieval practice. Every single time you force your brain to pull a piece of info out of your memory without looking at your notes, you aren't just checking what you know, you are actively strengthening the neural pathway to that information, basically making it easier to find the next time you need it. So quizzing yourself isn't just an assessment tool, it's one of the best learning tools we have, period. Next is interleaving and spaced practice. So instead of studying one topic for 3 hours straight, which is called blocking, you mix it up. You spend an hour on topic A, then you switch to topic B, then over to C, and maybe you come back to A later or even the next day. This forces your brain to constantly load and reload different information, which feels harder, but it builds incredible flexibility and a much deeper understanding. And yeah, this is the trade-off. It will absolutely feel like you're learning slower when you do this. You won't get that immediate, satisfying feeling of mastering a topic in one sitting. But the payoff is enormous. You'll remember it for way longer, and you'll be much better at applying that knowledge in brand new situations. So how does all this stuff apply to the digital tools we're using every day? It's really tempting to think that some flashy new technology is the magic bullet, but the fundamental principles of learning, they stay the same.
A really useful way to think about this is the TPACK model. It shows that effective learning isn't just about the technology. No, it's about the sweet spot where three things overlap: the tech itself, the content you're learning, and the pedagogy, which is just a fancy word for how you're being taught. An app is totally useless if its teaching methods ignore the science of how our brains actually work.
So let's look at the evidence in action. There was a study on teaching some pretty complex medical information, and they put these very different approaches to the test, head to head. And the results are stunning. Just look at this chart. It shows how much information students actually retained. Look at those first two bars, text only and screencast. Both are totally passive methods, and the learning gain is minimal. But now look at that interactive video bar, which used active recall. The retention isn't just better, it's in a completely different league. This is the proof. How you engage with information matters so much more than the technology itself. So the ultimate takeaway here is that learning isn't about being busy. It's about being effective. It's about trading the comfort of easy, passive review for the desirable difficulty of active retrieval. It's a change in mindset that can literally revolutionize how you learn anything. So I'll leave you with this question. Looking back at everything we've covered, what's the one small change you can make to your own learning process starting today?